For more information on my programs, please visit massajati.com. That's MASSAJADY.com.
Hi, I'm Tim Murray, and I started working with Moss about 4 years ago, and have done a lot of work with Moss. And my experience with working with Moss is that I've achieved the goals that I thought I would never achieve. First of all, in business, I've achieved in the last 4 years what I didn't think I would be able to achieve. I've actually gotten to a point where I own my own business. And that was a dream of mine my whole life. And there were a lot of circumstances and a lot of mindset issues with me that I never thought I could do it. And then everything came together, the resources came together, and I'm starting tomorrow with the company that I now own. And I have to say that that would never have happened unless I had started working with Moss. And then physically, I'm much better shape than I was. I want to even get in much better shape, but I wasn't very well when I first met Moss. I was working all the time and didn't really have any enthusiasm. I was very exhausted from work, and now I feel much better physically. And as time goes on, I think that'll even get better. The process of working with Moss is something that it's a lot of work. It's not easy. Actually, what happens is when Moss works with you, you start to realize through his work that there's a lot of things that need to change in your life. And through Moss's work, it's not really homework, although you're basically doing Moss's work 24 hours a day for as long as you're working with Moss, because the energetic changes in your body are very significant. At least in my experience, they're very, very significant. And sometimes it's innovating and exciting, and you have a lot of energy. And sometimes, at least in my experience, it's extremely difficult because there's old patterns that are being released that made major breakthroughs. And then there are times where you feel like you're actually temporarily feeling worse than you did when you started working with Moss. But that's a very temporary period of time. And so you have to keep pressing through because I think Moss's work for me is releasing a lot of patterns that are ingrained, and that takes time, because when you have ingrained patterns, it's like giving up something that you think you need, but you absolutely don't need it anymore, but you're afraid to give it up because it's familiar. So the work with Moss is clearing out all cycles of consciousness that do not serve you in your being, and then reaching and achieving the goals that you set out to achieve. I think without Moss's work, honestly, I don't know if I'd be alive right now. I feel that my old pattern was if I worked harder, not worked smarter, that if I worked really hard, I would achieve my goals. And so when I was in a period where I was not achieving my goals, I just worked harder and harder and didn't take care of my physical well-being. And as a result, my health suffered. And once I started working with Moss, things started changing tremendously. Good things just started to happen somewhat effortlessly. Good things just started coming to me, which I never would have achieved by my old pattern. It's just an effortless thing start coming to you. And then you're not working as hard because you're doing it in a much shorter period of time. So that opens up time for many other things that I wanted in my life that I felt I could never make time for. So That's the biggest change for me right now. It's a big change in health and a big change in career. And then the big change in career is also a big change financially for me, which is making things much easier. Well, I have to be honest. I mean, there were times when I was working full-time job when I was doing the work with Moss, and I had a number of other commitments after work other than the work with Moss. And I sometimes felt like giving up because the amount of internal changes that were going on inside of me and the amount of clearing that was happening inside of me made me feel that I couldn't get through it sometimes because like we all do in this society in this time, wherever we live in the world, we're multitasking. We have, our families, we have our work, we have our loved one in our life, we have many people that require many things from us. And then when you're doing this spiritual internal work that is requiring an absolute change in how one approaches life, what all of us do, and at least I did at a certain point, was I can stop doing the spiritual work for a while, and then when I get everything else together, then I can go back to it. The problem is it doesn't work that way with Moss's work. You have to do it straight through, like you are almost in some kind of training program where you have to complete it. Like we've used the analogy of being a Navy SEAL or an Army Ranger. When you're halfway through your training and then you decide to go AWOL, you're never going to be able to achieve your goal. And actually, if you stop midstream, you actually can be far worse than you were than if you had ever started in the beginning. So the only advice I would give if someone decides to do work with Moss is they take it to completion, however long that takes. My journey with Moss has been 4 years. I'm sure there'll be a number of more years that I'm going to have to or want to actually work with Moss and get even further along with what I want to accomplish in life. However, it's very easy to give up on Moss's work and stop working, and it's probably the biggest mistake you could make because it's like swimming across a very rapid river and then you decide you're too weak to finish the swim and the rapids can carry you away because you're midstream. So you got to just keep swimming until you get to the other side. And I guarantee when you get to the other side, it's a much better life. However, this is not for somebody that just wants to dabble in a spiritual journey. This is the complete journey that you have to take. So when you start, complete it.
For more information on my programs, please visit masajady.com. That's MASSAJADY.com.